I would like to ask all the old speakers to join me for a discussion. We have some half an hour or a bit more for a fruitful discussion. So Helen, Nikki, Khadija, with your lovely daughter, if you could please join us. Aris, please. Stelios, please join me. Yes, the microphone is there, and let's use this one because that one is a bit problematic. So, the microphone is on, please. And if you have questions to each other, please feel free to pose them.
Thank you. I was very much intrigued about the 1 billion app, and I was wondering what the following steps would be if we would, for example, want to implement such a project in, for example, Karatepe.
The apps are available. Is this on? Can people hear me? As part of finalists for the Global Learning X Prize, the 5 teams that were selected, I think there were over 365, I think, teams worldwide that entered the competition. And a condition of becoming a finalist is that the apps become open source. And actually 1 billion are very, very keen to learn from the other finalists as well. So what's happening there is they're going into Tanzania, literally, as we speak. And they're doing a really interesting experiment. It's being run by UNESCO, and I think the World Bank are involved as well. And it's Elon Musk who's put up the money for the competition. But they're actually going into villages in Tanzania where most people are illiterate and innumerate. They're putting the technology in and the apps in. So each finalist will go into a different village. And then they're assessing people's learning ability in numeracy and literacy beforehand, and then afterwards. And I think it's running for about 18 months. And then the winner is the village that learns the most. So it's actually an incredibly innovative competition. But I don't see any reason why we couldn't start working in the camps here with the apps, because they're available. The thing that I'm really interested in that we haven't trialed yet is this interleaving of topics. And that's what makes those apps particularly exciting, because they're available in these different languages. The literature on teaching English as an additional language suggests that learning concepts in the home language first facilitates then the English language acquisition. So we're planning on running a series of studies. We have an application in at the moment to one of the funding councils in the UK for a studentship that will enable that to take place. But these studies can be set up if you're working with partners on the ground. And like I say, I always like to work with a local university. So there's nothing prohibiting this happening here very quickly we could get something set up if we've got the resources to do that.
And are you in touch with the Ministry of Education?
Not here, no.
No.
In all the countries we work with, we go through the Ministry of Education. We have to have full ethical approval for all the studies that we do. So it takes time to set up, but there is no hurdle in starting that process.
When you speak about resources,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
Ideally, somebody who will conduct the research. So we like to work with students, with PhD students. It's capacity building, and if we work with local students, then you're embedding those research skills within the local community and your capacity building within the local community. That's somebody who will do the research, and I usually supervise those students. So with Tony in Malawi, we've been supervising a master's student there who helped us. If you've got the tablets in place, then it's a matter of asking 1 billion if they will donate the software for free. And for all of my research, that's the commitment that they've had to me. I wasn't aware of the structured education that the camps have here, but if you've got qualified teachers, that's fantastic. So it's teaching the teachers how to use the technology. But bearing in mind, we've been working with teachers in Malawi who have never used touchscreen tablets before. They have very little teacher training. And you can buy these apps and people can work with them in the home, so parents can use them. So it doesn't take much to put them in. What we're more interested in is the things that you were looking at, Helen, in terms of potential barriers to it being used in an educational context. So we were more interested in, you know, whether the teachers themselves, how they would feel with working with the apps, how whether they would be able to embed them in their pedagogical practice easily, or whether there were hurdles and that, so that we could optimize the implementation. But in terms of running a study, it's a reasonably straightforward process. The biggest hurdle, to be absolutely honest with you, is the ethics application. But if we have an in-country partner, if we have a university partner that we can work with to put the ethics through, straightforward. Yeah.
Yes, and then Stephen wants to say something. I want to ask the audience. We have invited the coordinators of education in all camps here in Lesbos. Do we happen to have any of them in the audience? No. Yes.
I'm not the coordinator, I'm just saying that they are not here.
Sorry?
I'm not the coordinator, but because I know them, I'm saying that they are not present.
Okay. Thank you.
And just to add to that then, so the ethics procedure, I've gone through all that, so I have it there, and I can share with you what we have to be able to set up programs like that. And like I was saying before, it'd be great to have the things are needed before those happen. For example, the internet, they do need better access to the internet, then they do need the more tablets and things. Mobile phones are great, but you do need the tablet for the larger screen size. But then it'd be great to use that program, and perhaps even many others that are free, to do different things, to cover different subjects, such as geography is a huge thing that these refugees want to know about. Because again, they want to know where they're going, where it is on the map, where they are now, because they were saying that many children believe they're already in mainland Greece. They wanted to see, you know, more of geography, what was happening and where they were at. So it'd be great to have different programs to be able to teach them different things as well. But that is a perfect one.
I'm going to probably throw a monkey wrench in this whole discussion here, because I'm a vice director for research. I have a tremendous appreciation for the entire IRB process. But part of me wants to say, come on, let's forget about that right now. If that's going to take a year to happen, let's facilitate just making tools available. Let the research go on in other places. These kids don't have 2 years to wait while we do IRB.
It can be a lot quicker. It can be fast. And like I
Can
said, I've
be,
got it
that's
as well,
nice. But
so-
I'm just being the devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Do we always need to have a research study in order? If we take HIV research, we've had these kinds of processes where we use a while you wait control approach in order to get things moving. And I
Yeah.
think we need to think that way here. We can't just do the classic, we'll, grind it out process when we have kids that are, what should I say, they are completely stagnating because they don't have these opportunities.
And I don't see that as being an issue here because the fact that we've already got one now, that can be translated to a different institution, that it's usually, once you've got one, it's very quick. And additions to it, such as the programme. So I don't see that being a great issue.
I totally take your point. I mean, there's two issues here. There's one, providing education to children who need it, and there's another issue of optimizing that educational provision. And I think we've done enough research with the 1 billion apps. I would feel fairly confident to say that if they were just implemented in the camps without any research at all, with our guidelines as to how best to do that in practice, then it'd be fine, and the kids would get working with them, and they would go on. So you can do that without us. Yeah, I mean, you literally could. You could get the apps on the tablets tomorrow. Where the research comes in, and we always try to do the research to optimize as many people as we can, which is why we do it generally through PhD students, because they're benefiting. And if they're local PhD students, and there might be a student in the camp, then you're upping their skills, you're raising their capacity, it's embedding in the country that you're operating in as well. But what the research does is it looks into optimizing that provision. So, tomorrow you could say, well, let's put the apps in. The kids could learn in Arabic, they could learn in English, they could interleave them. We don't know what's the best way of doing that until... But that's what I say. It's almost like the cherry on the cake, if you like, and that's what the research is doing. And the initial research was just providing proof of concept that these things work, because a lot of educational interventions look great, but unless you have the evidence that they work, you could actually be doing more harm than good. But where we are at the moment, like I say, I'm confident that they could be used effectively. If you want to optimize the effectiveness, I think there's further potential that can be further potential for research and lessons to be learned from that.
This is just a general comment to anybody just about implementing educational programs, because I've seen for the past 2 years, going on the 3rd year now, so many groups have come in here and they have these amazing ideas of what they're going to do. And my question always is, because I've seen them come and go, can you commit to something long-term? Is this something that will continue going on, that will be implemented all over for everybody? And if it's just going to be here for 3 months or 6 months, just don't waste your time, because it's wasting the time. I mean, things should be happening. There's lots of informal learning, and I'm very happy that it's happening, but there's so little things that have actually been implemented on the long term. People need this now, and people are going to come in here and start doing stuff, need to dedicate for the long term, and then I'm talking about at least a couple years, because they're losing teachers. They get to know one teacher who's there for a little bit. And the thing with the social aspect of learning, I mean, research has shown that often the actual social aspect is just as important as the actual content of that, and that's so important. So I think it's a good thing in the way that you can have a consistency, that they do have a certain system, a certain way they get to know the apps. That's great. But can this be long-term? Is this even when it comes to funding, if anybody's interested in funding stuff, are they going to fund this? How many years are they going to fund this for? Because if you first implement it and you get one group of kids who gets this, and then the next 2,000 kids who come in don't get that, or things break down, is somebody going to follow up to make sure that this continues on? Because otherwise you're just kind of putting a little Band-Aid on something. So think long term. Can people commit and implement it for as many people as possible? So
I think you hit the nail on the head there, and I think what we're doing here is actually setting up for that, because again, what was nice about my research was the fact that I looked to see, okay, mobile learning might happen in places, it might work, it might not. I checked to find out whether it had happened here and whether it would be effective. And my results so far, and I believe it's going to stay that way, has shown that it would be extremely effective. There are other programs here that have shown that certain programs would be effective. And now what we've been saying in our presentations is that we need to empower people then to take these things and run with them. That you shouldn't need, help build the infrastructure, help build the infrastructure as, okay, they need the devices, they need the training to be able to use certain things, and to say, okay, these apps can do this, these can do this. And then what I believe you will find is when people are using them, the refugees in the camps themselves, they'll be using them and they'll be able to share with other people, oh, look what this can do. And I don't think a program, and I don't think you were saying that either, I think you were saying, okay, let them use the apps. I don't think bringing in programs is always effective. I think the research shows, just like you showed, that people come in, do stuff for so long, and then they leave, and there's the end of it. We don't want that to happen. Instead, what you want to happen is empower people by showing them what there is and how they can use them, and letting them build that infrastructure and that understanding of where they can take it, reaching the stars, and give them the tools to be able to do that themselves.
And we've been looking at sustainable models, and actually Malawi is a really, really difficult situation to do this in, because of the rurality of a lot of places that we're trying to reach, because of the grid supply of electricity being so poor or just not there at all. Certainly when it's there, it's not reliable. And we're having to build there. And, you haven't got those issues here. So there might be issues with Wi-Fi, but once these apps are downloaded, they work. So the Wi-Fi is needed in Malawi for, because we track the children through the apps. So we actually track their learning, and every time they interact with the apps, that data is sent back to the UK. The UK then processes it and then sends it to the Malawian government and says, this is the number of schools that have accessed the information, the apps today, these are the number of boys, these are the number of girls, this is the rate of learning per school. So we're actually providing information to the education system, government there, in terms of progress on a daily basis with the apps. We're not doing that in the UK, and you don't need to do that. You don't have to have that feature, but that's another innovative feature where we're trying to reform the education system there. But what that means is that you have to work very closely with the ministry. So you have to have buy-in from the ministry, and you have to have long-term buy-in at a country level for that kind of thing. But like I say, you could all download it now, you could use it with your kids at home or whatever. And parents are doing that across the world. So the issue of sustainability in terms of the particular apps I've been talking about are the availability. And the availability is not going to be a problem because they have to become open source through XPRIZE.
سألته اللي هو ليش ما يكون في برنامج متعلق بالإنترنت حتى لو ما كان في شبكة الواي فاي.
She asked if we can find a program working with internet and without internet, and program not just for language, it's learning program for everything.
Let me ask, I don't know if Aris or Adil or somebody else in the audience has a picture of what the situation is regarding internet connection in, for example, Karatepe. What is the situation right now?
Actually, Movement Underground has been upgrading the Wi-Fi in the past weeks, but we are very much relying from the main signal from the beam of the university, which is also being shared with Moria. So that is something that's a work in progress, but we are upgrading the system as we speak.
Okay, the question is if something else than using the line through the university could be done. I mean, if we could try to find other solutions, is it possible technically or?
Technically, that would be possible, but it has to go through the municipality or to UNHCR, as they are the ones that are in charge of the incoming connectivity. So we're just maintaining and trying to upgrade the system.
Yes. This is, I would say that this is a general problem because Karatepe is quite okay because you have access to internet. I only recently, you remember Aris saying in this innovation summit you arranged when you had this representative of the municipality of Piraeus, because they have this huge camp in Skaramangas, and there they don't have internet access at all. I mean, imagine that. Not at all. Please, Helen, please.
Yeah, the internet is the big thing. Lots of people were saying, yeah, they've got it in Karatepe, but the families were saying it's not even worth us trying to get on because we can't get on. But I know it's available because a lot said, oh, this group over here are using the internet and it's very strong. So it is a possibility, but there's so many people trying to get on that it's very difficult. And to be honest, I think that is a huge barrier to education. That is the one, once you've got the internet and it's very strong for the people there, that will move mountains. Or go for the stars.
Yes.
And we didn't answer the question here about, I don't believe. Do you want to?
The apps that we work with, you need the internet to download them. But once they're downloaded, they work independently of the internet. So you just need the electricity supply to charge the tablets. And that's the main problem that we face in Malawi, is the electricity supply. So internet is a luxury, isn't it, Tony, in Malawi? It's really the electricity supply is the biggest issue that we face.
Anthony, just wait a moment for the microphone.
Thank you. The problem with electricity has been solved through the use of solar panels in the learning centers that are in the remote areas. So that's fine. And the internet is currently being provided by one of the cell phone companies for free. So all the learning centers are linking through the telephone companies to transmit the data. But as Nick pointed out, you don't need continuous connection to work with the tablets. You can actually work with them. The next time the tablet gets online, it will upload the data of what happened. So you don't need it fully online to actually work with it. So once the apps have been downloaded, you can actually take it away. Stay a month or two, work as far as you can go. The next time you get online, it will upload all that data if you need tracking of what's going on. But in this case, I think you don't need the tracking, so you don't need the internet.
But with the new development of the apps that 1 Billion have created for X Prize. It's got maths and literacy, and we're looking at early maths and literacy skills. So they're aimed at sort of children between sort of 3 and 6 in the UK, where kids go to school at 4. So it takes you up those first 2 years of primary school. But they have that integrated in something called One Course. But One Course is only available in Chichewa, Swahili, and English at the moment, whereas the numeracy apps have these 50 different languages. Yeah.
We have compiled a library with offline content that you can access, and it's not progressive learning, meaning that you cannot get from A to B, but there is a lot of adult content there that's not adult content, but content for adults that they can access to learn, and it's all available offline from big institutions like MIT, Harvard. They make their libraries available offline, and we have compiled research towards that. We have this information, so we can share it with you, and you can access it through your phone effectively.
One of the features of the 1 Billion literacy course is they've been creating books to support their literacy course, and they've been taking local stories and adapting them. This is actually it's been a difficult thing to do in Malawi, because some of the local stories have particular biases in that 1 Billion didn't want to promote. So it wasn't just a matter of translating the local stories into child-friendly material. It was adapting them to make them accessible and fair to all children. They've also been very proactive in featuring girls in their stories. So they've got a story online at the moment that's freely available. It's something to do with a hippo, they've got things like girls seeing an aeroplane go over the sky, and the girl looking up to the sky and thinking, "I want to fly that aeroplane." And so it's a story about the girl's education to become an airline pilot. So they're doing some really rather lovely things that are trying to target those vulnerable children in society that I was talking about. But they are just one of many, like I say, there are other sources out there as well, which it sounds great that you've compiled.
Is that just for adult learners that you have the...
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Because the content has been made available for adults primarily.
Okay.
The content for children is very limited, and it's always in the English language, unfortunately. So we weren't able to discover content that was available in Arabic or any other languages.
So yours is one program, and I know of various others as well. It'd be great if we could compile, and if we can download offline, that's great. There's also all sorts on the web. You might be surprised, but YouTube has a whole host of information and great learning experiences as well that they're actually already using the camp, to learn language and things like that. So it'd be great for them to be able to access all of these. Again, as a choice, to be able to, okay, I need this, now I need to use something else, now I need to go onto YouTube. It'd be great for choice.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to hear that Wi-Fi is like a priority, to provide the access. But on the other hand, like laptops or computers, desktops, how can we, going into 2018, not have 300 computers for people to be learning digital skills? I mean, if you've downloaded the app, you can use it. And when I say 300, I mean 300 in Karatepe. We should have 2,000 in Moria. I mentioned earlier we had a program with Refugee Code Week, where people got up 7:30, or no, sorry, we picked them up at 7:30 in the morning because they wanted to come and be trained. We had 160 people being trained in 3 days. So heading into 2018, how are we going to get laptops for people to be getting education and using digital skills so they can be positive contributors, so that they can become self-sustainable? So yeah, just someone can answer that question in terms of why do we not have laptops? I mean, there's so many organizations that would happily be donating for education. So I don't know if anyone can answer. Helen, perhaps, I mean, from the research perspective, or yeah, I don't know, like, how many laptops are there in Karatepe, or computers?
And am I getting your question fully, as in how much have they got there? And okay, yeah, so when I looked, they said they're just about to open a computer lab, but they hadn't got quite it open at that point, but they don't have that many computers. All the devices, they're not using technology whatsoever in the schools at the moment, adult or for the younger learners. But the people at home are using it a lot themselves when they can get access to the internet. Was that on the lines of what you were asking?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So, like, why don't we have, Ari, perhaps you could answer, why is there not 300 computers?
I cannot answer why there are not 300 computers. We have 5, which is not nearly enough, of course. But you can get access to the computers. The greatest challenge that we are facing is the steady stream of electricity. So we have, for example, desktop computers that our instructors were meant to use, but effectively, because these are desktop computers, when the power goes down, they cannot be used. So therefore, our programs cannot be run. That is in effect solved with mobile learning devices, because they require a lot less electricity and they have a greater battery life. So that it's a much greater tool that we have figured out. And I think the major challenge is electricity. So we had to decline on a number of opportunities to run educational programs and coding programs as well inside the camp, because we cannot guarantee that the program will be running based on the electricity program. And this is why we are now changing our technology to tablets and mobile phones.
Also say that for young learners, the tablets are a really, really easy device for them to learn. They tend to be very intuitive, and because it's touch screen, children learn about causality. So they learn, if I do this and I move this here, then this happens. And so we know from the emerging literature that's coming out that children, very young children, your 3-year-old, that's interacting with touchscreen tablets. It improves motor skills, motor coordination skills. It can be used with children with one hand or no hands. I've seen children in India using their toes to do this. I saw a child with 1 foot, and she had one leg and no arms, and she was using a tablet to make a video of herself. And this was one for you, Apostolos. I mean, I was absolutely in floods of tears, because they had positioned the camera. They'd got a camera on the tablet, and they'd positioned it onto her face. So all she could see was her head up. So you didn't see the disability. And she made this video of herself. And I was just like, it's just incredible. And when she saw herself talking on the screen, her face just lit up, and this smile that came over her face, it literally was priceless. But the tablets afford learning opportunities that more conventional desktop or laptop computers don't. Some of the work that we've been doing on added benefits to the maths apps that we've been evaluating have been looking at whether you get additional benefit to core cognitive and motor skills. And what we've shown is that when you work with the maths apps, not only do you get those learning gains that I showed in maths, you also get gains in selective attention. So your ability to isolate objects and track those objects on screen and focus your attention. And we showed that objectively in a very abstract psychological measure of attention. But the teachers in our classrooms are saying that they see that. They see the kids attending to task better. They see the children attending much better when they're back in their regular classroom after they've been working with the app. So it's always nice when the experimental research corroborates what teachers are saying happens in practice.
Actually,
I think also very critically, there aren't 300 computers in Lesbos as a computer lab in schools. So it's a problem we're also facing as a local society. So it's not just, you know, our society is struggling, and it's not like we're not providing opportunities for the people inside the camps. It's even schools that are suffering from a lack of this kind of equipment. Very basic, but they are.
Actually, if I can touch on the subject of tablets, 3 weeks ago we started. Hello, first I am Fotini. I'm an English teacher. I work in Karatepe. So 3 weeks ago we started our, let's say, tablet program. We have 25 tablets, and we have introduced them in class. We see the children are, let's say, going crazy for the tablets, and the biggest problem is that I don't have internet in Karatepe because the classroom, the education activities, as Adil knows, are in one side and we don't have access to internet whatsoever. So I have to carry all 25 tablets at home. I have to upgrade them, find applications that can work offline, and then bring them back to the kids. And I have already seen in 3 weeks improvement. So hearing about offline applications that can work without internet is very big help to me as a teacher.
Can I ask you, so whereabouts are you working? Because no one seemed to know about the tablets and the teachers I spoke to.
We just started 2 weeks ago, 2 to 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
So we are still hush a little bit because it's a pilot program, so we are trying to slowly introduce the program. We want to see how it goes, and then we invite more children.
Mm-hmm. And there are ways to keep those tablets in containers. The funny name for them are cows, computers on wheels. And there's like boxes that keep them very secure, that they could keep the tablets in, for the fact that the tablets, they're very thin, they're small. So, yeah, it's great that you're doing that.
Yeah. I think we should try to differentiate. Vasilis, I think, was alluded to that. The level of skills that you can acquire using one device over the other one. You can not learn programming and serious skills through tablets. Okay, tablets are for introductory, for young children to start, but or if you want to have improve your linguistic skills is okay, but you cannot learn actual skills in programming using tablets. That's not happening, and if you start moving into that capability, you are just moving into the laptop. That's because that's where the CPU power is, at minimum, to be able to do these things. So addressing one issue doesn't mean that you address everything through an app or through tablets. Now, in a recent study, that was a comment, and I fully empathize with the idea of how to provide this equipment in large numbers and how you amortize the cost. We had this conversation going into lunch. Maybe the issue is not that it's not possible, but there is no will to do it. All right? So So maybe this is more important than where to find the money, all right? So I don't think it's a problem to set up a super duper Wi-Fi hotspot in any of these places if there is a will to do it and if one looks into the long-term perspective. Okay. So neither is the problem with electricity. Now, in a recent study that I read, it seems they interviewed a large number of refugees, and the number one priority for them is to buy and keep a mobile phone, okay, to allow them to communicate. So if they have a mobile phone, it means they have interconnectivity. So it doesn't mean that they rely on the Wi-Fi. Somehow they find a means, and I would like to ask the people who live in Karatepe, what is the situation? 4G should be available there, right? So everybody should be online. So the Wi-Fi is the extra thingy. I don't think this is the problem. I know, but they get subsidies, right? Okay. So it's more of how, if there is this long-term will.
I did, but I don't know if someone wants to respond to that first, or if I can add something. And then
Do we have a response to that? Stephen, is it a response or something else? Yes, please, and then Vasilis.
As I said last night, I'm certainly going to be careful thinking I know anything about the situation, but it sounds like that the will that you talk about to do anything that even smells or even looks a little bit permanent is not there. So that seems to be the issue. It's not that the technology doesn't exist or the money doesn't exist or we couldn't find 100 computers as university leaders. There's no will to do anything that looks permanent, that looks longer than 2 weeks. That's what I see here after 2 days.
That you could look at that in a different way, and that by training people in refugee camps with the skills, with technology skills, that will enable them to be able to interact more effectively in society, then you could see that as mobilizing people as well. So, you know, I can see the argument for it becoming more permanent, but it can also be a way of increasing fluidity through the camps and for being able to enable people to move on more effectively. So,
I want to add on that, digital skills is the biggest shortage in the world, and you can take it with you wherever you go. And I think we should, as a priority, look to find ways of how we can empower people with digital skills because they want them. We gave them half a chance, they grabbed it with both hands. People are continuously asking. There's Rudy. He's asking me every single day. He came for 7 days in a row, or 5 days in a row attending. He's asking me every day. He wants a computer, one computer, so he can teach 100 others every single day. These are skills that people can use and are going to use them. So we're keeping people, blocking them in a way, and we're not empowering them. So when they do leave, or even if they end up staying here, that they're unskilled. So yeah, we really, really need to make this an absolute priority to find ways of how we can empower them through digital skills.
And that actually, look, I was going to say just quick one, that actually leads into everything that we've heard about. It's connecting to the community by learning the language and empowering them to be able to do that. It's learning about the culture. It's all connected to knowledge and learning. That's what empowers people.
Yeah, I just wanted to add 2 ideas and proposals. Question, maybe this is already happening by some initiatives, but there are a couple of computer labs at the University of the Aegean, and I was wondering if, I mean, that's where the workshop happened we did last spring happened, If there's people from the university here now, or if there could be discussion tomorrow or in the future, I think that that is a space that's already available, and I think that maybe that is a place to start and see, like, Rudy maybe could organize something there. I'm not saying that that would be a long-term solution, but the lab is there, and there's at least, I think, 25 computers. And I'm sure on the weekends, it wouldn't be such a problem. I don't know, like, I can't speak for them, but I have at least one person in mind that I could put you in contact with and who teaches there. Then maybe she might be someone to help with that. And the second thing I wanted to say is, if there is this issue of things not appearing long-term within the camps, that doesn't mean there can't be a computer lab that could be made in Mytilene proper, within the town. There's plenty of cultural spaces, Mosaic, Pikpa, different places that exist that no one is prohibiting could make this lab happen. I also recently just found out about 2 other spaces as well. Even if it was 5 computers or 10, I'm sure that would be a good place to start making something. And if there's already something, then that would, I think, encourage more support to come in. So if there could be like short-term goals first, and I think that it would be more than possible to happen. Even if it's secondhand laptops, I'm sure the networks here would be able to, through discussion, make that happen. But but the long term is important too, because that would have to be sustainable, and someone would be running that, and et cetera. But I think that's a good priority to put into the discussion.
That is a very nice gesture, I must admit. Unfortunately, the research shows that labs are not very effective for people traveling. People will use it if there's nothing else, but it's not always a great solution to have computer labs. It's been shown that, again, traveling to it, booking, getting there, and then there's no spaces, that people are not wanting to travel. It's not as empowering as, okay, I need to learn this now. Oh, I've got either my phone, that I've got the apps on my phone that I can use now, or when I'm in school I can be learning more then. But it's great, it's like you said, it's a perfect start to be able to have them there. But it'd be much better if we can get connectivity at any time. Yes, yeah, no, it was perfect. I know, we want everything. Yes.
Sorry, I have to respond. We did the refugee code week. We taught people Scratch, and the next week we didn't have a projector, and so we told the kids, listen, you guys can use the internet. We're making an exception here. Use the internet, do what you want. And we had these 3 little kids that said, oh, is it okay if I use Scratch? I said, sure. So these guys got so excited by learning Scratch that they came for Scratch. So for those who don't know, Scratch is like basic thinking on programming. So they all, first of all, came because they thought they're going to be having an opportunity, and it wasn't that they walked 5 minutes. They were excited to come. So, and especially if we've got thousands of people here and the kids. So, yeah, thanks, Christina, for the suggestion. I think, hopefully, and I hear Adil as well mentioned they've got the laptops as well, and Ari, and I hope that we can really focus on providing the opportunities for the people to be able to empower themselves as well. Rudy is waiting. He's built at One Happy Family. He's built a place ready for computers. He's built his little place there. He's just waiting for the computers there now, and he's ready to teach people for free every single day, which he's been volunteering every single day as it is. Thank you.
Before giving the word to Stelios, I would like to say 2 things on the very valuable proposals by Christina. As an outsider, both of them, one of the challenges, two things. One of the challenges we have is a lack of coordination, a huge gap, which means that you have a lot of things happening here and there without coordination that could, and a kind of co-creation that could have a big impact. The second thing is, unfortunately, that sometimes I have the feeling that we have something that is disgusting, which is a conflict of interests between various stakeholders, which means that sometimes some of those stakeholders or some of these protagonists of beautiful things that are done here are very focused, eventually too focused, on what they themselves will do, not in cooperation with others, because they want to have the accreditation, because they want to have some extra funding, because it has to do with their identity. I don't know why, but I see that one of the main challenges is strongly, ideologically, I would say, commitments to parallel paths and individual paths. So my contribution, my organization's contribution. So please cooperate and try to find a way of coordination.
Okay, I just want to make a quick statement. I think we were given a challenge about half an hour ago that we've forgotten about it. We have a lady here who wants to be skilled in digital skills, meaning programming, meaning being able to produce something, learn the tools to produce something with computers. So I'll challenge everybody here to find a way to make this happen.
Well, that would be my last question. Do we have any reactions to that? Do we have any good thoughts on that?
By overcoming bureaucracy.
Yes. Well, let's work on that, and we will work on that. Let's work on that. Do we have any last comment? Christina, please.
Yeah. I was just thinking about how quickly people responded when word got out that there's need for secondhand clothing, used books, used toys, anything that was needed since 2015. And I think that sometimes there's not very, how can I say this? The reflex are not always like the simple things also of just letting people know the needs. And I don't know, there's so much plethora that exists. I think even if each institution, people who are here could send emails to their institution saying, we're gathering laptops that are usable, you can donate them all of this week at this office. I feel, I don't know, I don't think it's such, it wouldn't bring something because it has already for all these other things that were needed. So maybe this could also be something that each person going back could do and see what could also come from things like that as well, just as another proposal.
I just say that I try to do that within my institution, we have bureaucracy there that says that any computer device that's bought for the university, when its end life happens, i.e. a new model's come out, we're not able to recycle it. We have to scrap it.
I don't mean from the institutional property.
From people's, yeah. And
things,
there are, I mean, we can do that ourselves, and there are also organizations that do that as well. But I also think that there's something that people like myself and the other academics here and other players in this political scene can do. And it speaks to the will. It speaks to where's the will. And it's what you were saying, Helen, about people thinking, well, you know, if refugees can afford a mobile phone, then they don't need our help. And I think that people do hold those views, and people hold them in a very misguided and very ill-informed manner. So when we did that survey and we found that the refugee families in Nottingham were spending, you know, around half their weekly income on mobile technology, it could be seen as well, what a waste of money if we're giving them money to spend on that, then why are we giving them money? But what they're using it for is a very different purpose and a very important purpose that, you know, we might be using it for those purposes as well, but the importance of that to those people is very, very different from what it is for us. And we have a role to communicate that message. We have a role to communicate within the press, within government, and this is where the research can come in, because you're saying, if you want an evidence base, here's your evidence base. You know, this is not just opinion. It's not just the British press putting forward their own opinion, which is driving people's actions. This is a scientific evidence base that can be questioned and can be critiqued, and that in a scientific forum. But I do feel that we have a very important role to get that message out. And the problem is that when you have something like a mobile phone, that phone can be many things to many people, and it can be different things to different people. And you tend to revert to your own use, and you say, well, I use it for, you know, posting photos of Lesbos harbour on Facebook and whatever. But for some people, that's a lifeline, and we have a moral obligation, I think, to put that message across for people who don't have that voice. And I'm not sure that that's been done enough, which is why that will is lacking, because you're having a misunderstanding and a biased opinion as to what these devices are used for.
I can just say, but on behalf of the university that I work for, we already do recycling of computers. We send them to primarily to the African continent right now, but I will assure you that when I get home, I will do everything in my power to try to reroute some of the computers that we recycle to this initiative. My concern has been, as I've been informed here, is that, as it was told here, that the schools on the island also need computers. So we don't want to create, we don't want to, in our desire to do good, we don't want to also create a political fight. So we need help making the appropriate decisions so that we don't do the wrong thing for the right reasons or whatever. But I do believe my university can assist. We can send some computers. That's doable. We just need to make sure we do it in the right way.
Well, I would have a mathematical reaction and a political one. The mathematical is 50-50.
I don't think my university can justify sponsoring the Greek education system. You see, that's a difference. So there's where we...
Then we do not have an ethical problem. Because the alternative, the political alternative, would be that we send the computers to the municipality and they can decide. No.
That wouldn't be an option for us.
I'm withdrawing that.
Yeah.
I'm withdrawing that. Sorry.
We can't sponsor the Greek education system.
Sorry.
You cannot make it permanent, and the equipment rotates around different
let us work on that.
Yeah.
Let us work on that.
We will. I mean, I'm happy to help.
Effie would like to say something. Who's Christoforos? Effie.
Yeah, I just want to add this information that regarding the Greek system, there's a lot of funding coming from various foundations, just like the Onassis Foundation, the Bodosakis Foundation, the Niarchos Foundation, who have permanent programs in sending technological equipment to the Greek schools. So I don't think this is a problem, because there might be needs here. I don't know what exact the needs are here, but I'm working for the Onassis Foundation, who have a big program sending computers, laptops, and all this type of stuff to Greek schools, so they can address applications to us, also to the Niarchos Foundation, the Bodosakis Foundation, and the Greek Ministry of Education also has a program. So I don't think this is a problem. If anybody comes and tells anyone here that we're facing this problem, then they can just direct the applications to us as well, and I can circulate the information and try to help the Greek schools here to my capacity.
Thank you.
Just, I think it would be amazing if something was implemented, if it was tablets, computers, or both. But as I think Adis mentioned, there is an infrastructure issue when it comes to things like electricity. It actually is a problem. The electricity does go down periodically, for example, at Karatepe. And so, again, whoever's looking for funding, finding grants to get this stuff done, keep in mind that a big part of that budget should be going, let's make sure, whether it's solar power or whatever, making sure that all these devices that are being potentially provided actually are able to run through charging stations or whatever. And you know, that's just something to keep in mind, so that that somebody goes, well, we're going to give a bunch of computers or tablets and they don't have enough electricity to actually use them. So just something to keep in mind, you know, the whole picture of need to think program but also infrastructure for that program so it will be sustainable and will work. So just a comment.
I would like to speak on behalf of the University of the Aegean and to respond to Christina. University of the Aegean is, of course, a very important local stakeholder in all this we're discussing. And of course, it is the University of the Aegean is eager to participate and to give whatever it is needed at expert level, at student level, or whatever. We had an experience with Vasily during the Refugee Code Week that we cooperated with CML and CEP in order to give our to provide the laboratories, the equipped laboratories, for the young people, locals and refugees, to be trained in order to be trainers. So this is something that can be done, but at an organized way, because it is very difficult to have a laboratory, computer laboratory, just for the refugees, because we have limited space, unfortunately. We are we lack space here at the University of the Aegean. But what we've noticed is that what you have mentioned, it is difficult for people to dislocate and go somewhere else, far away, to take a bus. It was difficult to take the bus. Vasily had to find ways to take 15, 50 people to come here for 2 days, in the morning, in the evening, and during the last sessions he decided to move downtown in order to be more, I don't know, easy for refugees to present in these labs. So I can assure you that the university can give these laboratories, or can co-organize intensive courses. Maybe this is more feasible than a continuous education, or a summer school type, such type intensive courses for trainers maybe, or for people that would like to be trained. So I think that this is not a problem at all, but someone has to ask to be in an organized way, and I know that the university works mainly through the UNHCR in order to be some more formal cooperation and collaboration. That's from my part. Thank you.
Can I just add to that, as well as the practical difficulties of you know, buying a bus ticket to be able to come, leaving family in the camps to come, and there may be, you know, young children that are being looked after. They may be caring for traumatized parents or disabled parents or whatever. You know, there's a whole host of reasons why it's difficult for people to come, but also the university itself is a major barrier to a lot of people coming. And unfortunately, universities are seen in that way by a lot of people in society that aren't used to that. So we held an event at our university. We had an Art Refuge charity who works in the Calais camps, and we were putting art therapy sessions on and trying to get our local refugee teenagers to come in. And we have a tram that comes all the way to the university. We paid for their tram tickets, you know, told them that they were very welcome, but the barrier was the university. It was seen as something, you know, prestigious, something that they weren't worthy of. And when they came and experienced it, it broke down those barriers. But for many, that would have been a barrier that would have prevented that. So I think when we look at barriers, it's not just monetary things or practical things. There are other things that we need to deal with as well, and bridging that gap. So, you know, mobilising the lecturers from the university here, getting them into the camps, especially if you could get short accredited courses that would give them a qualification as well. I mean, you must run CPD courses which are accredited. If you could get those into the camps where they're actually getting a qualification. So I know the camp itself isn't able to accredit education, but there's no reason why the university couldn't do that. But it might need the university to go to the camps first to start the bilateral process.
And just a really fast one, along with what you said there, that's when you get the gender difference, because the females don't go, but the boys have a better chance of being able to get there because they don't have to care for somebody.
Adil.
Just following your comment on we should share resources and work together in the refugee crisis. I would like to share that we have 8 laptops. So Movement Underground has 8 laptops that we have been using for the pilot, for the digital learning lab, and these have been donated to us to Sinipaxi. And I would like to state that we just secured funding for 40 new laptops for Karatepe. And this has been done with an organization which is called Computer Aid International, and they supply a new laptop for only 85 pounds. So that could be interesting for any stakeholder in this case. More than happy to share. I've got the invoice here, so more than happy to share the information. And we will donate the 8 laptops that we received from Sinipaxi back to Sinipaxi, because they will be needing them for their digital project. So in that sense, I think a great example that there are organizations that are willing to help each other and work together.
That's good to hear. A last comment by Christina, and then we have to close the session.
I just wanted to respond to the comment about the gender difference, which obviously is there. But I think that that's something that so many organizations in the past have overcome through knowing these challenges and organizing, for example, at the same time that there will be a workshop for women, to have an activity for children that will be happening in the same space, or a daycare center where there's people that they know and trust that will do a workshop with the kids while they're doing the program. So I think that I think that's actually something that's very addressable and not something to scare us away or think that it can't be done.
Oh no, no, I
and now
really
you have
appreciate.
to run for your flight.
Yes. Thank you for your talks.
And these are really good ideas, and please don't get me wrong that I'm not saying don't go that way. I'm saying let's go for whenever they want education, not just little snippets. That these are absolutely fabulous ideas that we need to use, but we need to think of longer, more sustainable strategies that they don't have to plan, oh, okay, I'm going to now get my family organised, I'm going to go to this. But, okay, I want to learn. I have the materials here and I can learn now.
Yes. thank you all. Special thanks, of course, to Khadija and her daughter. I hope we will see you tomorrow as well. We have first a session on simulation modeling of the crisis, which is extremely interesting. And then we will have a discussion about our ways forward, about possible co-working in the near and the long future. And we will have a guest, a special guest. We will have a member of the European Parliament with us tomorrow, who will come and share some of her ideas and eventually her proposals with us. I would like to ask our participants and our guests to stay with me here because we have to walk directly to the restaurant for dinner. Thank you very much for a long and very fruitful day, I would say, in both sessions. And thank you all for this lovely discussion tonight, which will, of course, produce a number of projects and initiatives. Thank you. Thank you very much.